I don't know what is going on. Hey, can you guys hear me? Can you guys see me? My daughter turned turkey butt, apparently, yesterday, and I didn't know what that was, but apparently when you turn 5, you're a half of a turkey butt, because this is a turkey. See? Gobble, gobble, gobble. And so I was like, hey, you're 5, how does it feel? And she's like, I'm a half a turkey butt. I was like, what? So add that to your 6-7 list. How's it going, Max Columbus? How are you? Are we talking California to open the show? Are you talking about the Swalwell seat? I think we're going to start with Georgia. I know it feels like we were just here. We were last month, May, yeah. But we're back in Georgia on the Senate. I mean, we're back in Georgia for a bunch of different reasons. But we've got Kornacki in New York at the Kornacki Cam, at the Kornacki Big Board. So he's going to give us an update as to everything that's happening right now in the elections. Are you guys watching primaries come in or runoffs? Remember, there's primaries and then there's runoffs. And in a lot of states, like Georgia, if somebody doesn't automatically get that 50%, then they have to go to a runoff, another election before the election. Lots of elections around here. But yeah, if they don't do 50% plus 1, then a runoff is automatically slotted in, and that's where we're at tonight in Georgia. Let's see here. SML, thanks. Back to you. Introducing NBC Hong Kong, Telemundo 47. Now it's on. Let's see here. Thanksgiving pun. Yes, yes. Hello, I got Kornacki feed on. They're fighting in there. Who's fighting? Kornacki's not fighting with anybody, is he? He's the best. Kornacki is the GOAT. 206. I almost said my password here, but then I didn't. All right, that is logged in. So I got one computer down here, secret computer. Then I got another secret computer down here. See, it's not really a table. It's actually a computer. Then we got the iPad over here. And then we got the phone. Lots of sources of information coming in here. Let's see. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, that looks good. Okay. Well, they're running off. Interesting. No, his users. Oh, you're talking about the chat? Yeah, that chat. See, that's why I like our chat. Our chat is so functional. Newcastle, Delaware, 32-bit Panda, how are you? Hi, Delaware. How's it going? What's the latest in your neck of the woods? This is the part of the day where I have to re-log into all the different systems that we use on a new computer. So we use this thing called iNews. That's where all of our scripts and changes and sometimes schedules are kept. Then we have Slack, so we can chat with each other. Then we have email. And then we've got our own proprietary system. It's called News Connect, where all of our alerts come in. Then I usually have a couple other things up. I've got X going during the show to be able to monitor real-time information, in addition to all of the stuff that we use here. I've got my news alert set to the computer here, and then sometimes I use Copilot these days. Copilot's getting better, and I just hit, hey, Antoinette, how are you? Control-Alt-C, did you guys do that? although it's not working here. But yeah, Control-Alt-C usually opens up Copilot for me. What is iNews? iNews is where we format and a bunch of commands and like video cues and all that stuff. It all works seamlessly in this computer program from the year 2026. Hospital shooting, what? Oh, I think we do, yes, yeah. I think we've got that in our headlines. What's the latest on that? Do you know? Pull this up real fast here. I think we're going to put that in the B block. Yeah. So we'll put the hospital shooting at Wilmington Hospital right at the top of the headlines. So we'll put that one there. I believe that the person, whoever shot, is still out there. They don't know who it was, and the campus lockdown has been lifted. So that's got to be scary for that community. And we've got Luigi Mangione. He had a court hearing that was supposed to happen, but there was some sort of paperwork error. And now it's going to be pushed till tomorrow. Serena Williams, she is coming back to the Wimbledon with her sister. Women's doubles, yikes. I'd hate to be on the other side of the court. And then let me just switch this up. Kanye West. Todd, if you can hear me, maybe we can do on the Kanye West stuff, is expanding as opposed to dropped. If you can do, instead of dropped, I think that's the word that just bothers me. Maybe we just do expanding. Is expanding, you know. Yeah, okay, cool. Much better, yep. All right, thank you. Then J.D. Vance was on The View, and he was talking about how he's like an Epstein conspiracy theorist, which I thought was pretty interesting. So we're going to get into some of that. Monica Alba is reporting on that. And that B-52 crash here in California, some questions that the family members of the victims are raising. So I think Liz Kreutz is going to join us there. Hello, Isabella. Western Cincinnati, did that just happen? There's so much stuff going on right now. Oh, that's good. Who? Oh, Iraq versus Norway. Yep. Interesting. Dragon Boat Day. What is that? Oh. H-Day. You're going to be at the Doobie Brothers concert in Cincinnati? Congratulations. What was the contest on the local radio station? That's a good ticket to win.
About 2.5.
Two and a half minutes. So Pacific, yes, that's right.
2 minutes. Going B to G.
Okay. Let's see. Antoinette. Interesting. I think we've done some interviews there too. UAPs are angel-human hybrids called Nephilim? I think the Nephilim thing, is that the giant stuff?
90.
90 seconds? Are we standing or are we?
Oh, it's standing.
Okay, we're standing. 90 seconds. Man, come on, guys. I got to get my head in the game. You guys can't start me on UAP stuff right at the top. We got to talk elections first. Now you've got me distracted. We are going to be looking into some of that with Gabe Gutierrez, who's in Geneva, about the relationship between Benjamin Netanyahu and President Trump, who is not mincing words right now. They're always E. We go to E. A, B, C, D, E blocks. So 5.
Copy that.
Interesting. Interesting. Gotta brush up.
Sounds good.
All right. We got 40 seconds till showtime. Doreen, thank you so much. Antoinette, we'll look into all of that. Okay, here we go. They might.
30.
You're right, H-Day. Have a good show, everybody.
Have a good show.
30 seconds. Here we go. All right, so if you guys are just watching, in about 20 seconds, the show is going to start. I'm going to put myself small here. That way you guys don't have to double look at me here. But in just a bit, 10 seconds, the show is going to start, and then we'll chat during commercial break. It's like we usually do. All right, have a good show, everybody.
5, 4, 3.
If it's Tuesday, chances are somewhere in America it is election day. And tonight we're following races in these 4 states: Georgia, Alabama, Oklahoma, California, plus Washington, D.C. And some of these could test just how strong President Trump's endorsement is. Like out in Georgia, polls have already closed and all eyes are on the Republican Senate run. If it feels a little like deja vu, it's because this is a runoff to the last time they voted last month. Georgia is one of those states where if no one hits over 50%, then they go to this second inning, and that'll decide which GOP candidate advances to the general election in November and faces off against Democratic Senator Jon Ossoff, whose seat is widely seen as vulnerable. Now, President Trump weighed in with a late endorsement of MAGA Mike Collins, calling him a highly respected congressman who has been with me from the very beginning. Also super important, there's a Senate race that is another runoff, and that is happening in Alabama, where former Navy SEAL Jared Hudson is gaining ground on the early Trump supporter Congressman Barry Moore. Polls closed there just a few minutes ago. Let's break all that down and more with NBC News' chief data analyst, Steve Kornacki, at the big board. Steve, great to see you. You've been watching this before the show. So polls closed about an hour ago in Georgia. How's it looking right now?
Yeah, we got some interesting races here. 2 close races in our hands here. First, in that Republican runoff for the United States Senate, the winner getting Democrat Jon Ossoff in November. Congressman Mike Collins is leading the count right now over former Tennessee football coach Derek Dooley, also the son of a former University of Georgia football coach. That might be more relevant right here. But a 14,000 vote advantage, Collins over Dooley. The numbers I would say that we've been looking at, Dooley has been competitive, but what's happening right now is the election day vote, the vote that was cast in person at the polls today, is starting to get added to the mix. And what we found in these Republican primaries this year has been that vote has tended to be the more pro-Trump, pro-MAGA vote. Collins, of course, running with the Trump endorsement here. So far what we've been seeing as that election day vote has been added in has been probably a little bit better for Collins than it is for Dooley. Still a very competitive race, though. And on the governor's side here, just take a look at this guy, Rick Jackson, sort of conservative insurgent candidate, self-funding, has poured a ton into this with a big advantage over the lieutenant governor, Burt Jones. But that dynamic I just said about the election day vote, the pro-Trump, pro-MAGA vote starting to get added in. What we're seeing here is that election day vote, where we've seen it, has been pretty friendly to Jones, and Jones running with the Trump endorsement in this race. So Jones is going to need to have big, big numbers to turn this around when the election day vote's added in. There are some early indications, Gotti, that he could be able to do that. If he does, this is a real barn burner on the gubernatorial side.
Wow. And outside of Georgia, we've got races in Alabama, in Oklahoma, California, also in D.C. Anything else that you're watching right now?
Yeah, polls just closed west of the border here. Wow, this is the gubernatorial. This is the I'm sorry, this was not supposed to happen. I was supposed to get the Senate race up. There it is. I apologize for that glitch. That's entirely my fault. This is the Senate runoff, the Republican Senate runoff in Alabama. Again, this is a test of the Trump endorsement. Congressman Barry Moore against Jared Hudson, a former Navy SEAL, sort of running as a conservative activist insurgent. There's been some polling that this is a very close runoff. Moore had gotten more votes, done pretty well in the preliminary here. Hudson, though, had kind of closed strong. This is going to be a very interesting test. Alabama Alabama is a pretty slow state at counting up its votes. I think a real interesting test here of the power of the Trump endorsement. The other thing that just happened, as you mentioned, in the nation's capital, Washington, D.C., first time in 12 years, they are going to have a new mayor, the incumbent not seeking re-election. This is the Democratic primary. The city is basically all Democratic, so this is more than likely going to settle who the next mayor is. The two frontrunners, Janice Lewis George, she calls herself a Democratic socialist, against a former city councilman, Kenyon McDuffie, supported by a lot of the folks around the outgoing mayor, Muriel Bowser. One thing to keep in mind as these numbers come in tonight, they are for the first time in D.C. using ranked choice voting. If nobody gets 50%, they go through this long process here. Bottom line is they wouldn't give you the winner until probably a couple weeks from now, at least 10 days from now, if it does go to that ranked choice calculation.
Yeah, it's just another system to keep track of all the different systems that we use for the primaries in the United States. Wild. Meanwhile, here in California, District 14 for Swalwell's seat, like that seems to be seeing some redistricting, like whiplash, right? How's that looking?
Yeah, I mean, this is, folks, try to follow me if you can on this one, because boy, it doesn't get more confusing than this. But so California, a couple things happen here. This is a special election to fill the seat of Eric Swalwell. Remember, Eric Swalwell resigned in scandal. He had been running for governor, so his seat came open here regularly, but then he resigned his seat altogether, and it triggered a special election. So this is the special election tonight, and it's California. Democrats and Republicans all run on the same ballot, and then the top, if somebody gets 50%, they win on the spot. Otherwise, the top two will advance to a runoff. The winner, ultimately, of this will only serve probably the remaining, probably end up being a couple months of that unexpired Swalwell term. But in the interim, the lines have changed a bit, but in the sort of new version of Swalwell's district, they already had the preliminary, and the leading candidate was Aisha Wahab there. She was the leading candidate. She still has to run in the general election. But bottom line is, you'd expect her to do well tonight based on how she did in a similar district in California's June primary. I don't know if that made any sense.
No, it did. Wait, okay, so let me just make sure I'm following. So they are going back, again, California has redistricted, but they are going back to the original district lines for this vote, even though all other elections going forward are using the lines today, right? It boggles the mind that this is, again, this is a complex system that is used here in California. It is in flux right now. I know in Georgia, just speaking of redistricting in particular, Georgia, they're going into a special session tomorrow where they're drawing up lines potentially for 2028, and that's all under, review by the court system. Like, again, how do you keep track of this, Steve?
Yeah, no, look, that's it in California. They redistricted for all the seats that are up for election this November. And so we had the primaries a couple weeks ago for all of those districts. So we set that up. And as that's happening, sort of on this parallel track, Swalwell resigned from Congress altogether. So his seat is currently vacant in Congress. So this is an election to fill that seat until the end of this Congress, when whoever gets elected this November will take it permanently. So yeah, this is the lines were all redrawn for redistricting. So right, this is the sort of original version of the 14th district. And again, the winner here gets this job for a couple months, but this is a lot of overlap between who's running in the new version of it too.
Yeah, wild stuff. Steve Kornacki, really appreciate you breaking all that down for us. Thank you so very much, and we'll be checking back with you probably as the night continued. I want to go to NBC News correspondent Priscilla Thompson, who's out in Jackson, Georgia for us tonight. Priscilla, so let's hone in a little bit more on the importance of this Senate race. What are you hearing from voters, and has anything changed since the same election last month?
Yeah, that is going to be the big question. I will tell you, the mood in the room right now is light. Representative Mike Collins just walked in a few minutes ago. He was greeting supporters. There were some claps and cheers as he made his way around. But these are the dynamics of the race. On one hand, you have Derek Dooley, from this famous football family here, who's really pitching himself as the political outsider here. He has the endorsement of the very popular Republican governor, Brian Kemp. But on the other hand, you have Representative Mike Collins, who is a staunch Trump ally. And of course, as you you noted, received that Trump endorsement just on Sunday, that late, last-minute endorsement. And we talked to voters about that and whether it was making a difference for them as they walked in to cast their ballot today. I want to play some of what we heard from one woman.
It just seemed like it took a long time for Trump to make up his mind. So it was kind of like, you know, iffy. If he would have endorsed him in the beginning, it would have given you a good feeling that that's the guy he wants in there, you know. But wait until the last minute, just kind of like, well, I don't know whether to or not, or put my name on him.
And so we heard from some voters saying that that endorsement didn't do much for them. But for some of those people who were still deciding, they said that it did help them to make that decision. But as you mentioned, a big race to watch as Republicans are looking to flip what is currently a blue Senate seat here in Georgia held by Democrat Jon Ossoff, of course, in a state where President Trump won in 2024. Gotti?
And what's the latest with the governor's race there?
Yes, another interesting race there. So you have billionaire Rick Jackson up against the lieutenant governor, Burt Jones. And so we have seen the lieutenant governor get the endorsement of both Trump, who endorsed him early on, and just this weekend, the endorsement of Governor Brian Kemp. So two different wings of the Republican Party sort of embracing him. And then you have Rick Jackson, who has spent more than $100 million of his own money in this race, blanketing the airways with ads, many of them attack ads. But the interesting thing to watch here is that the candidates that did not make this runoff were more moderate Republicans. And so as these current candidates have spent this entire campaign trying to sort of out-MAGA each other, it'll be interesting to see where those voters whose candidates did not make the runoff go. Jackson has sought to court them, but it'll be interesting to see if they actually showed up for him today or just chose to stay home altogether.
Well, Priscilla Thompson, thanks so very much. And turning now to that UFC fight at the White House and a very alarming alleged plot the FBI says that they stopped that included drones, explosives, snipers possibly, a storming of the grounds. The FBI says around 20 people were involved in this planning, including 19-year-old Tyson Proper, who's been arrested and charged with attempted murder along with a slew of other charges. Now, the plan, according to investigators, was to attack with drones carrying explosives, then open fire at thousands of people in the crowd. And the doc says that, according to Proper, this attack was designed to jumpstart a revolution in the United States. And in addition to sniper positions and storming the White House, the feds say that there were also a list of high-value targets, and the images dropped in court documents released today show some of the tactical gear that investigators say the suspects were planning to bring with them from places like Ohio and Mississippi all the way to Washington, D.C. NBC's Kelly O'Donnell is following this one for us. Kelly, what do we know about those arrested, and how did the FBI learn of this?
Well, this is a combination of the U.S. Secret Service and the FBI working together. And they actually got a tip from the mother of one of the 5 men in custody who called local police first, saying she was concerned about changes in her son, a 19-year-old who has been charged in this case, spending some of his money on weapons and amassing the kind of gear that you might need to be a part of this plot. So that's how they first got involved. Then when they were able to find the chat rooms that this group of sort of loosely affiliated guys from across the country, they were using social media, encrypted chats, they were then able to try to find out their real identities. And that's one of the big questions that's remaining. They have 5 in custody. They've identified the true identities of some others, but there are others who participated in the dialogue, the planning, that are only known at this point by their username. So that means there's more investigative work to do.
And Kelly, when you look at that video of Trump and Dana White walking out to the ring from inside of the White House, I mean, you get a sense of how close everything is. I know that you're so familiar with those grounds, but what kind of security perimeter was there?
Well, a massive security perimeter. That's the White House, a major event, the highest level of classification. So simply walking on the grounds was not necessarily the risk. Had these plotters been able to get drones in the air, you first got to understand that there is a federal restriction for drones. So even seeing the drones, they would have attempted to mitigate that in advance. What is so deeply concerning about this plot is we have seen that it does not take a particularly skillful attacker to cause harm, death, and a lot of disruption. We saw that in a range of these types of attacks, from the assassination of Charlie Kirk, the attempted assassinations against President Trump. the shooting at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. It doesn't have to be someone who is able to carry out their full mission, who can still do real damage. And that's part of why this is such a concern, because they assembled various tools from weapons and ammunition and ballistic protection, and they had plans. And even carrying out those plans incompletely might have been very, very dangerous.
And like you mentioned, I mean, there's, something small can cause chaos. And these particular plans, there was plan for that chaos, right? It was something would happen, then people would run, and then people would be waiting for the crowds and the chaos, right?
These plotters were thinking through that. They wanted to create distraction in an area near the White House. They wanted to use drones to deliver some kind of explosive payload that would cause people in attendance to be afraid and forced to evacuate. And as they were fleeing, they had a plan to have another group within this collection of plotters who would be acting as snipers to try to take shots at those who were in the area. All of that giving you a sense of the planning involved to try to create mayhem, to cause violence. Thankfully, this was disrupted, and they were arrested prior to the event. This event happened on Sunday. It went off successfully. Even Mother Nature was threatening for a while, but that even was okay. But this very serious plot has been disrupted, and they're trying to understand more about it now.
Yeah, got to make you wonder how many people that were there actually knew that that plot had been foiled. Kelly O'Donnell, thank you so much for your reporting. And from fights at the White House to trying to broker peace deals, the president now seems set on ending another war, and we're not talking about Iran here.
We were focused on Iran. That's going to be in the rear view mirror.
So who's in front right now? Well, that's Ukraine. President Trump met with President Volodymyr Zelensky earlier today during day 2 of the G7 summit in France. He says it went well, and he would do whatever he can to end Ukraine's war with Russia, which, as a reminder, has now been going on at full scale for over 4 years. So where does that leave things with Iran, especially now that the United States officials tell NBC News that Iran has fired drones at commercial ships in the Strait of Hormuz since the agreed upon memo of understanding. And here's something that's important. That's before these shots were fired, the president said this about Benjamin Netanyahu and Israel.
I'm not happy with the way Israel has handled themselves with Lebanon and with Hezbollah. They should have been able to do the job faster. It just goes on forever. And when that happens, it throws a negative light on the big deal, and that's the deal with Iran.
NBC's Gabe Gutierrez is in Geneva covering the president's trip. Gabe, the president did not mince words at all when it came to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. What's the status of that relationship?
Well, look, Gotti, the president has been increasingly frustrated with Prime Minister Netanyahu over the last several weeks, especially when the Prime Minister attacked Lebanon, or rather Hezbollah, just a few days ago when President Trump was getting ready to sign this memorandum of understanding. The president saying in an interview with the New York Times that Netanyahu is a very difficult guy. Well, today the president was asked specifically about one of the main sticking points in all of this broader peace deal. There's been a lot of concern that the conflict between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon would continue to rage, putting a broader peace deal in jeopardy. Now, the president said today that he wasn't happy with the way Israel and Netanyahu had been handling the Lebanon situation, and he expressed frustration that Israel at times will bring down an entire apartment complex just looking for one guy. Now, certainly, this is a very President Trump is trying to walk a fine line here. Netanyahu, for his part, says that he still considers himself a partner with the United States, and even though he and President Trump do not see eye to eye. So a major question moving forward, Gotti, is this relationship between Israel and the U.S., obviously key allies, but what happens if Netanyahu chooses to go his own way when it comes to Lebanon? That could put this broader peace in serious jeopardy. And President Trump only sees that conflict in Lebanon, which Hezbollah, obviously backed by Iran, he sees it as a minor skirmish and is trying to draw attention away from it in search of that broader peace deal, Gotti.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the president seems to be projecting a lot of confidence when it comes to this peace deal. Do we know the specifics of what's in this agreement between the United States and Iran?
Look, Gotti, it's pretty remarkable. At this point, it's already now been 2 days since that memorandum of understanding was digitally signed by the president and the vice president and top negotiators from Iran, and we have yet to see the text of this memorandum of understanding. Even top Republicans in Congress say that they have not seen this text. Now, the administration, for its part, says that there's a lot of misinformation floating out there. They express frustration at certain provisions here that appear to have leaked of this memorandum. But at the same time, they say that no, that language is incorrect. What the president has been saying is that this memorandum of understanding, this deal as he calls it, will reopen the Strait of Hormuz, that it will end the U.S. naval blockade of Iranian ports. And then the vice president has been in many interviews trying to sell portions of this agreement. He's been asked questions about, will there be any sanctions relief or money given to Iran? The administration is arguing that money is not given, that there are certain benchmarks and potential rewards if Iran fulfills its commitments, and among those might be a $300 billion fund created by Arab neighbors to repair damage in Iran, but that Iran would only have access to that if they meet certain benchmarks. So the administration hasn't said specifics of what those benchmarks are. But President Trump today, when pressed for details, said the most important thing was that Iran would not have a nuclear weapon, Gotti.
Meanwhile, some of the biggest news of the day is Russia-Ukraine. Trump says he wants to do, quote, whatever he could to help there. What does that look like? Because the Ukrainians have been pretty specific about asking for Patriot interceptors, right?
Well, look, President Trump today, he did urge Russian President Vladimir Putin to strike a peace deal here. He certainly is frustrated that this conflict has gone on as long as it has. He promised to end the war on day one of his presidency. That obviously hasn't happened. But over the last several months, the president really hasn't talked a whole lot about Ukraine. He's been focused on a lot of other things, Iran, Venezuela, even Cuba, but especially Iran. And today at the G7, we saw a bit of a shift in terms of focus among European allies here. They really tried to push the issue of Ukraine, and Ukrainian President Zelensky was at the G7. He wasn't initially scheduled to meet with President Trump officially. But when he arrived, he was greeted by the French president, Emmanuel Macron, and they were overheard on a hot mic talking about a potential meeting with President Trump. Macron saying that he urged Zelensky to meet with the American president. Macron said that he tried to make it happen. And indeed, President Trump and President Zelensky, along with Macron, met behind closed doors earlier today. So certainly Ukraine back in the headlines, especially since Russia just bombed a centuries-old religious building in Kyiv, and so certainly this conflict continues to rage. Got it.
Gabe Gutierrez in Geneva for us tonight. Gabe, thank you. And we now have a call to make in Georgia. NBC News can project that Congressman Mike Collins has won the Republican runoff election for Senate and will now face Democratic Senator Jon Ossoff in what many political experts are saying is one of the most competitive Senate races this year. Let's go back to NBC's Steve Kornacki at the big board. Steve, how did this take form here?
Yeah, I don't think it's a huge surprise, Gotti, because, look, this is the runoff. These candidates had run in a primary with more candidates last month, and Collins was the clear #1 in that race. He'd gotten over 40% of the vote. He was double digits ahead of Dooley in that preliminary. So this was a pretty steep hill for Dooley to climb all along. He was going to have to win the lion's share of the votes that were sort of up for grabs in this thing. And then at the end of this campaign, at the end of last week, Donald Trump got involved and endorsed Mike Collins, and we know that Trump endorsement certainly has carried considerable weight in all these Republican primaries. So Dooley was sort of up against it, and the geographic contours here, about what we were expecting. This sort of pinkish shade of red here is the Dooley color. This was where his strength was, the Atlanta metro area in the primary. There's a lot of votes right there, but in a Republican primary, not as many votes as there are in a Democratic primary in Georgia. The Republican vote is more spread out, and as you sort of extend across this map here, wow, you just start to see that dark red shade for Collins here all across South Georgia here into the northwest corner. A lot of Republican votes up there. Well, so just a breadth of support here for Collins that, Dooley didn't show that he had that breadth of support in the preliminary, and the evidence tonight is he didn't really build that in the runoff right here. And so the question then, as you say, is going to become one of the general election here. This is a race that, Democrats nationally trying to win back the Senate. They need a net gain of 4 Senate seats this November. That's a very hard thing for them to do when you look at what the map is going to be this November. One thing they absolutely can't afford if they're going to have any shot of doing that is losing a seat they already have. And that's the story here in Georgia. Jon Ossoff's the Democratic incumbent, and now we know his opponent is going to be Mike Collins. This is one, if Collins can make this a truly competitive race, and if he could ever knock off Ossoff this November, on the spot, he would all but cement the Republican majority in the Senate, because the math, if the Democrats can't hold on to a state like Georgia in a climate like this, the math for them would be too daunting, I think, elsewhere.
Yeah, and it's looking like come November, it could go either way. Steve Kornacki, really appreciate you. Thank you so much. Thanks. And tonight, 16 million people are under the threat of dangerous flash flooding as a potential tropical cyclone moves towards the coast of Texas. This area has already been dealing with some very big flooding concerns after a string of severe storms that have at times turned deadly and forced tow truck drivers into emergency action. Those conditions that stretch into Louisiana. Folks were forced to push a car out from underwater. Out in Mississippi, floodwaters are now completely engulfing houses, businesses, and roads. And in Houston, that is just one city at risk for that tropical storm developing in the Gulf Coast. Now let's bring in Ryan Chandler, who's following all of this from Houston. Ryan, I mean, it looks like pretty good conditions behind you. What are you seeing?
It's been on and off all day, Gotti. What do they say? If you don't like the weather in Texas, just wait 5 minutes. I think most people in Houston are considering themselves lucky given the dramatic impacts that we had imagined. They just did not materialize today. We are expecting more rain through the night that could lead to more localized flooding. But as we're watching this unpredictable forecast develop, it's looking better and better for Houston and worse for Louisiana. Still, we're in this area near the Woodlands, Texas, north of Houston, which got battered by some flash flooding today. Cars were stranded. It caused some localized travel impacts, but by and large, a fortunate scenario here as we watch and cross our fingers for what may develop tonight, Gotti.
Tonight and beyond, what are officials warning people to expect over the next few days?
Well, Houston officials are adamant that the worst threat to life is going to be on the roads. I grew up in Houston, Gotti. Flooding happens all the time, and unfortunately, Houston is all too used to some of the major arteries in the center of the city being completely underwater. When flooding happens, it can really shut down the city for days. They are taking this very seriously, warning people that even a foot of water can be deadly. It can sweep cars away. We saw a tragic death in a circumstance just like that out in the Texas Hill Country, where a woman's car was swept away. So we've seen the serious impacts of this, and Houston officials are responding by barricading areas that they know are going to be dangerous. They're even retrofitting dump trucks to serve as high water rescue vehicles and pre-positioning boats for inevitable water rescue, Scotty.
Ryan Chandler with a reminder of how quickly things can turn. Ryan, thank you. And some breaking news out of Mississippi tonight, where officers there have shot and killed a 1-year-old kid while responding to a shoplifting call. NBC's George Solis has that story.
A shattered window and bullet hole in the windshield, the aftermath of a deadly police shooting in Senatobia, Mississippi that resulted in the death of 1-year-old Cohen Wiley. The shooting sparking outrage.
I'm more angry because the situation that took place really was unnecessary. What I'm hearing from what happened, it was unnecessary.
According to investigators, the shooting, which took place Sunday in this Walmart parking lot, occurred when officers responded to a shoplifting call involving 2 adults and a child. Authorities say the 2 adults, now identified by the family's lawyer as the boy's mother and her friend, tried to get away, driving toward and nearly hitting an officer. Another officer then firing at the car. In this video, officers can be seen running. One witness telling a local reporter of the two adults. One was carrying the child, the other a box of diapers.
Policeman shot, open fire in a public setting over allegedly some Pampers.
Investigators say the trio ended up at a local hospital where the 1-year-old was pronounced dead. One of the adults suffering critical injuries. No officers were injured. The family of Cohen Wiley now distraught and demanding answers.
I don't know anything right now. My grandson gone. I just want justice.
Tonight, the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation is now investigating the shooting. George Solis, NBC News.
George, thank you. And don't go anywhere. Coming up next, the vice president goes on TV and admits to being a, quote, conspiracy theorist when it comes to the Epstein files. Plus, the World Cup's smallest host city welcomes the defending World Cup champs, Argentina. And also, if you see this QR code and you want to talk about Argentina or whatever else, guess what? You can scan through, you can chat with us live, you can tell us your thoughts about the show, about the news, about the weather all day long. That'll take you behind the scenes, streaming on YouTube, TikTok, or Twitch. We'll see you there. That shores us up? Okay, cool. Yeah, I saw the sky and it looks pretty good, and I do know that things can change very, very quickly, and I know that it was horrible yesterday, but I'm glad to hear that it's looking better in Houston. Stephen, need your thoughts on Disclosure Day? I don't want to ruin it. I need a new studio. SML, thank you. I need a new studio.
You smell?
No, I need a new studio. But thanks for that, too.
Oh, that's what you said.
Gosh. Yeah, Liz is here.
I thought you literally just said I smell.
No, I said SML.
Oh,
Oh, SML, I smell.
Okay.
I see how you did it.
Got it.
Probably do smell, though. I probably do smell. It's been a while since this jacket's gone to a dry cleaner. How about that one?
This one needs to go.
Yeah.
I'm realizing.
That's the
I'm
thing
pretty big
about
on the dry cleaners.
correspondence and dry cleaners.
I have two great brothers down the street. I love them.
Nice. Which ones? The Roxy ones?
No, it's like green cleaners.
Oh, nice.
Right across from What a Peach. Like on that website.
Oh, what's our time back?
10. 4, 3.
It's sad.
Hey, welcome back. Here are some other headlines that we are watching tonight. Today, at least one person is dead after a shooting inside Wilmington Hospital in Delaware. Now, right now, police are still looking for the shooter, but the campus lockdown has been lifted. One other person was shot, and the victims have not been identified. And the state court hearing for Luigi Mangione has been pushed to tomorrow. He missed a court appearance today because of some sort of paperwork error by the DA's office. Mangione is accused of shooting and killing the United Healthcare CEO in Manhattan in 2024. He has pleaded not guilty. His trial is scheduled to start in September. And Serena Williams is set to make her return to Wimbledon alongside her sister Venus in the women's doubles. The pair have won the Wimbledon 6 times, that title, including their last appearance in 2016. Now, that announcement comes as Serena just returned to playing professional tennis last week at the Queen's Club tournament. And despite the history of anti-Semitic comments and pro-Nazi statements, a man formerly known as Kanye West is going back out on tour. He's got 8 shows lined up for Chicago and San Antonio, but he has yet to say anything on social media about the new tour dates. And Love Island fans are racing, or at least some of them are racing to catch the latest episode of the reality TV show, literally, because that's what police said that one Arizona woman was doing when she was arrested for allegedly driving over 100 miles an hour in a 65-mile-an-hour zone to get home to watch. She's now facing charges for criminal speed and reckless driving. And new information tonight in that B-52 bomber crash that burst into flames shortly after takeoff yesterday, killing all 8 people on board. The military is still looking into exactly what brought down that massive plane, but some of the families on board, or of those on board, are now talking publicly, and what one of them is saying seems to be raising questions about the timing of that flight. NBC's Liz Kreutz has the latest.
The wife of one of the victims in that tragic military crash outside Los Angeles making a serious accusation about the deadly flight.
The last text I sent him was, "I love you."
Lauren Smith tells us her husband, Jeremy Smith, a Department of Defense engineer who had worked at the base for a decade, was regularly part of a team that flew on B-52 test missions. But the flight that crashed, she says, was supposed to happen last week.
I know specifically on Friday, they were going to fly on Friday, and they just kept pushing it back and pushing it back. And I don't think that plane was ready to take off. And I'm so sad it did.
NBC News has reached out to the Air Force, which says they will not comment on an active investigation. On Monday night, authorities on the base said what caused the Boeing B-52 bomber to crash remains unclear.
At this point, we don't have any indication as to what the cause was of this.
Officials say the 8 people on board the flight, which burst into flames shortly after takeoff Monday morning, were a mix of military, civilians, and government contractors. The Air Force has not publicly identified the victims. Boeing says 2 of their employees were among the deceased. Lauren says her husband had only returned to work last week after paternity leave, leaving behind their toddler and 4-month-old son.
He was the best dad, and I'm so sad he doesn't get to watch them grow up. And in the midst of Father's Day on Sunday as well, it just hurts my heart so much.
The military says they expect to release the names of all the victims tomorrow morning.
And Liz joins us now in the studio as well. Liz, I mean, you know, usually the FAA, the NTSB are who we turn to for these investigations. How is this investigation going to go? When will we hear answers?
Yeah, well, the military says that as their investigation continues, it could be weeks and really as long as 6 months until any kind of real determination is made on what exactly happened. This process, it will happen in phases. But the thing is that some of this could be classified. And yesterday at that press conference, officials had said it's unclear how much we'll be able to release to the public. So it may be that we, the public, maybe the family members, never fully understand what exactly led to this. But as far as the victims, again, tomorrow we expect to get all of the identities. And Lauren told me that she just wants people to know how much her husband loved this country and how hard he worked for this country.
Yeah, and his family too. I mean, gosh, that picture is so heartbreaking.
Yeah, it's sad.
Liz, thank you so much. Meanwhile, Vice President J.D. Vance was on The View today to promote his new book, but Whoopi and the gang, they apparently had other plans. They pressed him on a whole bunch of issues, including the Epstein files. And after calling himself a conspiracy theorist on the Epstein stuff, he said this, listen.
I know you guys don't always appreciate this, but, you know, one of the things you see in the Epstein emails is that Jeffrey Epstein hated Donald Trump, and that Donald Trump literally reported Jeffrey Epstein to the police. He knew Jeffrey Epstein back in the 1980s. He also threw Jeffrey Epstein out of his club when he found out he was a creep and reported him to the police.
That might be new to a lot of people. So for more, let's go to NBC's Monica Alba at the White House. Monica?
Hey there, Gotti. Yes, when the vice president said that the president had called police, it seems he was referring to a recently released FBI interview summary where then private citizen Donald Trump was speaking with a former Palm Beach police chief. And I can read you a little bit from that, where he said, and this was back in 2006, quote, "Thank goodness you're stopping him in relation to Epstein, but this interview was done by the FBI back in 2020. It came out as part of that disclosure of files related to Epstein, but we should note it didn't initiate the investigation into him." And look, the vice president on The View today confirmed that he does think he's a bit of a conspiracy theorist when it comes to all of this. Some of that was brought up in a recent New York Times report that included details about situation room meetings on how to respond to some of the Epstein news. And even Susie Wiles, the White House chief of staff, is somebody who has previously called the vice president a conspiracy theorist. And he said that he agrees that he does still have some more questions and that he wants to have full transparency. Now, some of the hosts on the show pressed him on some of that and the discussion around releasing all of these documents, which the Department of Justice did end up doing, and the president did sign that Disclosure Act into law. But he also said that the president was pretty frustrated that Democrats have made the Epstein files, he said, about the president and his relationship with the late sex offender, who we should point out the president has denied any wrongdoing in connection with. Gotti.
Monica Alba, thank you so much. And now over to the World Cup, where the excitement is building across the United States. We're talking 3 big matches today in 3 different cities. Earlier, France got the day started with a 3-1 win over Senegal in New Jersey, putting on a strong second-half performance. Just moments ago in Massachusetts, Norway defeating Iraq 4-1 with the last-minute shocking goal to end it all. But the match so many people have been waiting for kicks off in less than an hour, or half hour now. The defending World Cup champions Argentina takes on Algeria. All eyes on Messi in what could be one of his final World Cup moments. The fans are already buzzing. Listen. Ojime. This is the biggest World Cup ever, with one of the biggest moments happening in one of the smallest host cities. That is Kansas City. Listen.
I mean, I was born and raised here. This is my hometown. This is, where my family's lived for generations. So extremely prideful. And, I always knew Kansas City had it in us to pull something like this off. And I think we're doing it well so far.
They sure are. They always had it in them. Joining us now is Shaquille Brewster, live from outside Kansas City Stadium in Missouri. So, Shaq, Messi Mania in Missouri now? What are you hearing?
Oh. Gotti, the excitement in which you read that introduction was not unusual to me, because that is the excitement that I'm hearing here in Kansas City. When you're talking to the people who are from here, when you're talking to the fans who flew in from literally all around the world. We're actually at the Fan Fest, so Arrowhead is miles and miles away, but this is where people who don't have a ticket come and enjoy the festivities. You see the big Kansas City heart there. That's one of the symbols that is part of the heartland, part of the city here. And then further back, you have the big sound stage. There's an artist performing now, and then that is where people are going to be watching the game. You see some people rooting for Argentina right there. Yep. There are some people for Algeria as well, so you have some balance there. I want you to listen to some of the conversations I've been having with fans throughout the day.
I've dreamed of this since I was a kid. I played soccer growing up, all through elementary school, middle school, high school, college, so this is just like a dream come true.
We're going to beat Argentina today. Don't tell anybody.
Look around you. Be careful.
Yeah, that's exactly why. It's going to be a big surprise.
I wanted to warn him a little bit, because he was vastly outnumbered by the amount of blue and white jerseys that you see behind me, the amount of Messi jerseys that are here. Argentina is one of the teams, one of the countries that is actually based here in Kansas City. So they're not just competing here tonight, but they're staying here. They're essentially living here. So they have somewhat of a home field advantage tonight, because it's not just a lot of their supporters who have come in, but it's also a lot of local residents who are supporting one of the 4 teams that are actually based here in Kansas City, Gotti.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Look, there you can always pay a lot of money to go sit in a seat and watch the pitch, or you could go to the grass where the people are, which is where you are. This is definitely where the fun is. What's it looking like out there? Are there any games while people are watching the game, or is it all, eyes on the big screen right now?
Right now, it's a mix of things. I'll tell you, this is a huge area. I can't even show you it, even if I tried to walk around. But, further back, I mentioned, is the sound stage. But if you go over to the right, that's where you have some of the games. You saw people playing cornhole. You have a lot of the activation, some of the sponsors having tents and interactive things for fans to enjoy. The thing about this, Gotti, is that this entire scene, not just here at the Fan Fest, but when you look over at Arrowhead, now Kansas City Stadium, this is 10 years, more than 10 years in the making. Kansas City, the smallest city hosting a World Cup. They said they're not going to let that stop them. They're competing against cities like Boston, cities like Houston, and they're saying that they believe they can put on a better show, a better fan experience than any of those other cities. Kansas City calls itself the soccer capital of America. They're doing their best with these fan events, with the accessibility, the logistics that are pretty smooth here compared to what you've been talking about and what we heard from other cities. They're saying that they can put on a better performance for fans and a better experience for fans than any other city. And I'll tell you, from the couple of fans that I talked to who aren't from here, they say that they're enjoying their time in this small Midwestern city.
Yeah, you want to know why? Because soccer and cornhole go perfectly together, as Kansas City is now showing the world. Shaquille Brewster, thank you so much, man. Enjoy yourself out there. And coming up in the future of everything, NASA is ushering a new era of exploring the cosmos with an epic new space telescope that could be one of its most powerful ones yet. More ahead, so stay tuned. Argentina. Let's see. My two kids live in Kansas City. They love it there. Are they soccer players? Are they cornhole players? Cornhole is so fun. Oh, good evening, Bell.
1 minute.
Yeah.
Standing at the big wall.
You've played that before, right, Paul? It's the best. We are doing Future of Everything, SpaceX, and then we're doing Nancy Grace, right? Are we doing Nancy Grace at the wall?
Yeah, I believe.
Okay. I'm so excited about this, guys. Space telescopes coming up. Okay, here we go. What's our time back?
You got 30.
30 seconds. Okay, so we're doing Nancy Grace Space Telescope, but before that, obviously this is not Nancy Grace Roman, this is Elon Musk. They are continuing to use their money to do stuff. They're sort of buying Cursor. We're going to talk about it. Here we go.
10. Go back a little. Yeah, further back a little. Great.
And tonight in the Future of Everything, we're talking about a whole lot of space. But first, SpaceX, they are expanding even more into AI. On the heels of their biggest IPO, the biggest IPO in history, SpaceX said it is buying AI startup Cursor for $60 billion in an all-stock deal. Now, Cursor builds AI tools for writing computer code, and this continues the company's AI ambitions after Elon Musk merged SpaceX with xAI back in February. Then last month, SpaceX also outlined plans for the first stage of an AI chip manufacturing project in Texas that is absolutely massive. And there is a new main character that has entered the chapters of our space odyssey. She is called Nancy Grace, a Roman space telescope, but it is NASA's newest, greatest piece of equipment compared to the Hubble Space Telescope, which is the OG telescope. It is supposed to be 1,000 times faster with the field of sight 100 times bigger. And with the Nancy Grace Roman, this NASA is hoping to try to unravel the secrets of the universe, like dark matter, dark energy, all of the planets beyond our solar system, and it plans to launch in August, which is a very, very big deal. Let's bring in NASA's program scientist, Dr. Dominic Binford. First of all, Doctor, under budget, ahead of schedule, how did you guys pull that off so far?
Well, it's great to be here, Gotti, and talk about this because, yes, indeed, we are launching the Nancy Grace Roman Space Telescope on August 30th. We'll be ready to launch from Florida, and that's about 8 months earlier than we had committed to. And we're going to be under budget, in part because we're early. We have been managing this very carefully and very thoughtfully for almost 10 years now to get to this point.
Anything is possible, as you guys are proving, under budget, ahead of schedule. Look, it's a weird time in science and in space and in pop culture. There's been so much talk recently about UFOs, UAPs. But if people think that, like, are we alone in the universe is the biggest mystery, wait till they start reading about dark matter, dark energy, which we are totally in the dark about still. What is Roman going to do to help find the questions, or the answers to the questions that so many ponder when it comes to dark energy?
Well, that's right, Gotti. We've got these major mysteries. About 95% of the universe is comprised of either dark matter or dark energy, which are these aspects of the universe, particles and forces that we know are out there. We can see how they affect the matter, all the galaxies that are spreading apart, that are being pushed by this. But we don't understand how it works. We don't understand how they act to create the universe that we see around us every day. And we're going to get the data that we need to understand this with the Roman Space Telescope. What we've really been hindered by is that even though we have fabulous telescopes in space right now, the Hubble Space Telescope, the James Webb Space Telescope, launched relatively recently, but they are very small field of view instruments that are like looking through a telephoto lens. We want a panoramic view. So instead of looking at thousands of galaxies, we can look at hundreds of millions of galaxies. Instead of looking at thousands of stars, we can look at billions of stars. And when you can start taking data at that scale, you can begin to understand what you need to know about these answers to these mysteries. I don't know what the answers are going to be yet. That's why we're building the telescope.
Oh, can't wait to see the first images. And I love the analogy that you put up there. I was trying to explain it to somebody, and I know this analogy falls apart when you actually look at the numbers here. But with an iPhone, you got the telephoto, so you got the 4X. That would be like maybe Hubble. And then this one is like you go wide angle, right? Except for same sensor size, which is pretty wild, right? Like the same actual physical size, and you're able to get so much fidelity. What are the specifics when you compare what Roman can do with what Hubble can do?
Well, you're right that they have some similarities. The telescope is comprised of something very similar, an 8-foot diameter piece of glass, the mirror that collects the light from the cosmos. And that is what gives us the same sharpness of image and the same sensitivity of image, see it there, that you get with the Hubble Space Telescope. But our field of view is more than 100 times wider. The difference is actually in the sensor. The Hubble infrared camera has a 1 megapixel camera, 1 megapixel sensor. The Roman Space Telescope has a set of 18, 16 megapixel sensors, 300 million pixels. It's the largest infrared camera, to my knowledge, that humanity's ever built. And it'll be launching into space on an observatory that is 10 times faster than the Hubble Space Telescope. So it maps the cosmos 1,000 times faster than has been possible in the past. It's a phenomenal
the things
amount.
We humans
Survey machine.
Yeah, the things we have done with little grains of sand, turning it into glass, turning it into chips, and then we're launching it into space. We cannot wait. We will be following every step of the way. Dominic Benford, a real pleasure to have you tonight. Thank you so very much.
Scotty, thank you for having me on.
Sure. Now, has this ever happened to you? You're looking at prices for Uber or Lyft with maybe like a friend standing right next to you, and then you look and you compare and you both get completely different prices despite going to the exact same place? Yeah, we've been noticing that too. So NBC's Vicky Nguyen investigated to see what's going on, and here's her report.
On Uber and Lyft, it's simple. Choose a destination and get your fare. But some customers are frustrated by price swings.
How is price surging on Uber legal?
Uber prices these days are like being in a toxic relationship with your ex.
Now, a new Consumer Reports investigation found many riders saw sharply different prices for the same trips requested at the same time.
The median difference between the lowest and the highest price groups was 50%.
So in some cases, you might be charged $100. I'd be charged $50.
That's right.
Reporter Derek Kravitz says 174 volunteers across 18 states checked fares on hundreds of rides. In Austin, Texas, prices range from $25 to $65 for the same route ordered at the same time, a 160% difference. Uber and Lyft have long used surge pricing, changing fares based on demand, driver availability, and traffic. But these findings raise questions about whether these apps are using personalized or surveillance pricing, setting unique prices for each customer based on their personal data.
We found that they have the capabilities to look at a lot of different things, namely how you interact with the app, how accurately or fast you type an address, and whether or not you're going to a daycare to pick up a child and you're a little bit late and it's a hot summer day.
Data, he says, could help companies estimate how much a customer is willing to pay. A spokesperson for Uber called the investigation flawed, saying prices can change second by second based on factors including routing and even slight GPS differences, telling NBC News Uber does not personalize prices, period. A statement echoed by Lyft, who also added what riders see is driven by trip characteristics, real-time supply and demand, and any promotions. Consumer Reports says some routes were ordered by volunteers in the same location, but others were not. So my 12 NBC colleagues and I requested a trip to the Museum of Natural History with the same pickup address at the same time.
3, 2, 1, tap.
On Uber, the highest price was $35.96, the lowest $28.35, a 27% difference. On Lyft, it was a 37% difference. Intern Sebastian Sotom got the highest price.
I'm a college student, so I use Uber and Lyft pretty much every day. To have the highest price was shocking.
In March, the House Oversight Committee announced an investigation into whether Uber, Lyft, and other companies use surveillance pricing algorithms. Both companies say they use customer data to offer discounts, which Kravitz calls a form of pricing personalization. Regularly take the same trip, you may be less likely to get a coupon. But consumers have no way to know what's driving each fare. So we asked Uber about our demonstration, and a company spokesperson said even though the app showed the same address, the phones registered slightly different GPS locations based on where each person was sitting in the room, even calculating that we were a block apart, even though we were all in that same space. They say that's what accounted for the 27% pricing difference. Back to you.
Interesting. What an experiment. Vicky Nguyen, thank you very much. And still to come, a look at a new tool that could be the key to cracking down on the illegal sea turtle trade and keep them from extinction. But first, you got to see this. A new Guinness World Record has fallen from the sky. Ishan Hodkar has been solving puzzle cubes since he was 10 years old. It took his hobby to new heights, literally. He's just locked in. Look at that. He's going. He's got it! Took him 2 attempts, but this week he set the record for the most rotating puzzle cubes solved in a single skydive when he managed to crack 2 Rubik's Cubes from 13,000 feet before landing. Yeah, it turns out only thing faster than dropping him was the time on the clock. Let's go, dude. $50 quote from the Daytona airport. Did it for 25? Huh. Wait, did that happen? I had to duck out. We had a tornado warning on our local station. Is that happening now? Uber definitely charges me a lot.
1 minute.
I actually, the other day, I was looking Uber versus Waymo, and Waymo was like half the price. So, interesting stuff. 1 minute. We were talking DNA and sea turtles. It's going to be a great story. Man, that was a really good Nancy Grace Roman Space Telescope segment. I can't wait. We're going to go out there. We're going to see it. I want to do the whole thing. It's going to be awesome.
20.
Here we go.
5, 4, 3.
Finally tonight, we are celebrating World Sea Turtle Day, and we are looking at new DNA databases that can trace the origins of sea turtles, and that can help researchers find populations and protect them from illegal trade. NBC's George Solis reports.
Sea turtles, alive since the time of the dinosaurs, have rightfully earned their reputation as living fossils. Majestic and beloved, they have unfortunately also been the target of significant threats. Among the most significant hazards to populations, habitat loss from pollution and climate change, boat strikes, fishing, and illegal trade. And even with ongoing conservation efforts, 5 of 7 species are threatened with extinction over the last 3 decades. More than 1 million marine turtles were illegally exploited worldwide.
It is still alive, it is still intact.
That's where Dr. Chris Madden, a marine scientist with the World Wildlife Fund, comes in.
Whether they're whole turtles, whether they're eggs or their meat or even products themselves. And so we need to be on cautionary absolute standby to know that this is a threat that we need to reduce as much as we can.
About a decade ago, Dr. Madden and her colleague, Dr. Michael Jensen, were in Australia researching turtles when her interaction with a hawksbill turtle, among the most impacted by the illegal turtle trade, inspired a potential species-saving idea.
We knew we could take DNA from wild turtles and tissue samples, but we just didn't know if we could do it with tortoiseshell.
That became the genesis for what would become ShellBank, the world's first and most comprehensive marine turtle DNA database. Researchers can now extract DNA from any turtle source to pinpoint nesting beaches thousands of miles away and learn which populations are most at risk.
We're able to use DNA to be able to understand what turtle populations we have, how they're connected, and how they're being impacted. And so that's a real game changer.
So far, the databank stands at about 20,000 records, with some more being added every month. 38 countries are also looking to get involved, with some governments already using the data to crack down on the illegal trade. WWF also operates a strong buyer beware campaign to educate people what to look for and what to avoid. Wildlife forensic scientist and conservation geneticist Dr. Greta Frankham is among the researchers building up ShellBank.
We can do much more with the sum of it than what we were doing just with our individual research projects.
Helping expose poaching hotspots and trafficking routes is just part of the goal of ShellBank. Researchers say what they can learn about sea turtles may prove invaluable in ongoing efforts to preserve the species for generations to come.
It just really exemplifies or highlights how connected our oceans are and how countries are connected without really even realizing it. We do really need to work cross boundaries and cross borders with other countries to get really useful and powerful outcomes for these turtles.
Dr. Madden looking towards the future and paving a way for sea turtles to fight back.
ShellBank's really trying to provide that limelight for turtles and be a voice for them so that, we can have healthy oceans for the rest of our lives too.
George Solis, NBC News.
George Solis, incredible report. Thank you so very much for that. That's going to do it for us tonight. I'm Gotti Schwartz. We'll see you here tomorrow, but until then, stay tuned to NBC News Now. Awesome. Thanks, guys.